and welcome to session number 4 of the Maui Nembutsu Seminar with Reverend Bob Oshita and Reverend Patti Oshita. So today, the final topic was set up as Jōdo Shinshū, or the Nembutsu for temple growth, because this question always comes up: how do I do this? And this is it's a topic of interest. It doesn't always come up. You've been talking about this, of course, the whole time. But this will be the final session. So if you're in the in-house audience or the Zoom audience, this will be your last chance to ask questions and stuff. So if you put the questions into the chat, I'm happy to do that. Or if you just say, I want to ask a question, let us know on the chat. And with that as an introduction, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Reverend Bob Oshita.
Thank you very much. Well, here we are, day 2, session 4, and the topic I know is actually, I think I mentioned at the very beginning, the first topic, Nembutsu for everyone, really covers it all. The Dharma for everyone, if we do that, everything just kind of follows naturally. Dharma for everyone means Dharma for kids, for youth, for adults, for everyone. And in a way, although we break it up with different sub-themes, always I think that's going to be underlying, that the Dharma we're trying to share is for everyone. And what Patti and I have been sharing is not a recipe for any success. This is where we have been sharing. I hope you heard us try to explain that it's only in retrospect that we realize what we've been able to do. I think about this even in my life. When I was young, 13, 15, 17, 20, I wondered, what is my life going to be like? Will I have a good life? Will I be happy? Will I be fulfilled? And I look back now and I know that there is no answer to that. The answer comes only when you're able to finally look back on years and years of your life and realize, no, it was good. It was good. And it's the same thing with when we look at our work with the Sacramento Betsuin. It's only in looking back that we realize what we were able to do for whatever reason that was able to help the temple grow. And I mentioned early too that we went with a vision, we went with a plan. And I think that's important for a temple to have. A minister, the leaders, and the temple in general should have a kind of a plan, a vision, a goal that they'd like to accomplish in maybe a 5-year goal. That was ours. And the 5-year goal, as I mentioned, was we wanted every child who's attending the Sacramento Betsuin to understand why they're there, that they could respond to the question, you're a Buddhist, so what is Buddhism? And they would be able to hopefully share something that really means something to them. And I know it was about after 2 years that I remember the incident that made me feel like, I think we've reached our goal, that, the kids understand something about the Dharma that they share very naturally. I think it was 1986, no, maybe 85, 86, our second year there. I was broadsided. My car, my 1985 Toyota, my Nissan Maxima, my 85 Nissan Maxima, I kept so shiny and clean, broadsided on the street here in Sacramento. A young man just was racing out of his driveway, and I don't know why, but hit the side of my car. uh, couldn't move, wheel was locked, and traffic is stopped. And of course, police came and they were taking accident reports. People were going around the block traffic, and one of the cars coming around was the Makishima family with their young son Gordon, who was in our Metta Padma class. And the car was at a stop, and Gordon leans out the window and says, "Hey, Reverend Bob, is that your car?" And I said, "Yes, Gordon, that's my car." And then he said, "Well, that's impermanence," you know, and added, "That's dukkha." And I, I found myself just smiling, thinking, "Wow, that's great." He was able to apply it so immediately, and it just made me smile, made me laugh even. And I came home and told Patty, "Guess what happened today after the accident?" And we know that that's all we can continue to do. There was, I think, a sub theme that Reverend Carey mentioned about trying to make the Dharma immediately accessible, where it resonates with us without having to think about it. And that's something I really feel that the Dalai Lama has been able to do. He's a great ambassador for our Dharma tradition, and he was able, is able to just share the Dharma in a way that immediately connects. And one of my favorite explanations, quotes of the Dalai Lama is when he was asked once, "What is Buddhism?" What? And he replied, "My religion is kindness." That's it. My religion is kindness. You don't need to go any further. You're not thinking about it. You just go, "Wow, that's nice." And that's the immediacy that we have to try to strive for, to be that immediate. There was one incident that Patty and I attended a funeral for a young man who had taken his own life, and it was another temple. And we went there, and so we sat in the, we weren't part of the service officiating. And so many people were there, they had put folding chairs out beyond the hondo, and we were sitting in the folding chair area. And then when people began to stand up to go up to Oshoko, and, we decided, well, we'll wait a little while, let everybody, go. So there were some empty chairs now around us, and a few rows back was Patty's childhood friend, Brian Nagata, and he was sitting next to a woman who was unfamiliar with Buddhism completely. And Brian says, "Oh, there's Bob and Patty." And he calls out to us, and we turned around and he says, "Hey, she wants to know, what is Namo Amida Butsu?" Now, what do you say? You have to say something immediately, immediately. And it can't be like, well, there's the concept of Amitabha and Amitayus. You can't explain all of this at such a time. And that was when I was very grateful that we had already, been trying to do this and understand the Nembutsu simply as we and explain it, share it in a simple way. And I was able to say that Namo Amida Butsu, what we're saying is just expressing our gratitude beyond words, where the words "thank you" are not enough. That I've already mentioned a number of times during my talks here. So how do we grow a temple? Well, back in 2006, I remember Socho Ogui asked me to open the National Council meeting. And what I shared then was, I have some of it here, but I responded to the question that many of us have, we're talking about today, considering the direction of our Jōdo Shinshū temples churches and missions in America. And the question is this, what is the future of Buddhism in America? What is the future of Buddhism in America? And my response was, there's absolutely no doubt that Buddhism has a vibrant and meaningful future, not only in America, but in the entire world. Why does Buddhism have a vibrant future? Because the teaching of the Dharma is simply, as mentioned before, universal truth. And then again, another Ugui Senseiism, he would say, if the Dharma is truly universal truth, it should make sense to anyone, everyone, to any place, any time, in any culture, in any language. It should immediately connect with all human beings throughout time, because the Dharma is universal. So, understanding that the Dharma has a vibrant future, your Honganji temples and missions have a vibrant future. Well, it's interesting that this is only the second time I've ever been asked to talk about growing a temple. The only other time was probably 25, 30 years ago. The San Francisco Konkon Kyokai, that I knew many of the people there. And I was actually, although I grew up going to the San Francisco Buddhist Temple from age 2, 3, that I was in the Boy Scout troop for that was sponsored by the San Francisco Konkon Kyokai and the Fukuda family, and wonderful people, and they knew of recognized the success that Sacramento was having, and then they said, hey, we know that guy. And so I got a call, and they asked if I would come to their temple, their church, the Konkon Kyokai Church, and speak to their board and their futures committee about how they can grow their church. And I was delighted to attend and responded to the question, how can we make our church grow? And, under that, of course, means, and how can we get more members? And my response to them then, 25, 30 years ago, is what I feel today. And I think you've already kind of felt my position on this, that we should not be concerned with growth. That if we make growth our concern, then we're focusing our energy in the wrong area. As I mentioned, Patti and I never thought that let's make Sacramento huge. Instead, our concern was, how can we make our temple a real Dharma center, a real center of universal truth? I suggested this to the Konkon Kyokai, that the goal is not to make your church large and impressive, but the goal is to make your church alive and real. If all we are doing is trying to become large and impressive, then or even if our national organization or our Kyodan is only trying to become large and impressive, then we're just building to impress. It's all show, it's all form, and there will be very little meaningful content. When responding to their question, how can we make our church grow? How can we get more members? I asked them to consider the analogy of a flower. And I would ask all of us to consider the same thing. Consider each of our temples and missions a living Dharma flower. Even the smallest real flower will attract bees, and they will return again. They will return again and again and again, for the life-giving nectar coming from a real flower is genuine. They receive nourishment from this flower. Such flowers, however small, have the potential to grow and become a field of flowers because they're alive and real. Real flowers have genuine purpose because they have genuine life. And the pollen from the smallest living flower will naturally rub off onto the many bees who have been nurtured by that flower. And in time, they will create thriving fields of living, blooming Dharma flowers. If our goal is simply to become large and impressive, then we're making our goal to, in a way, to fabricate bright and beautiful artificial flowers, vibrant colors made with fluorescent plastic. Have you ever seen bees attracted to artificial flowers? Of course they will come. They cannot resist the beautiful the fake blooms. They're so huge and so vibrant. But eventually, the bees will learn that there's nothing there to give them real nourishment, and they will leave empty and learn soon not to return, for there's nothing really there. And because the flowers are artificial, there can be no growth, not really, for they have no life. Even the smallest temple that is real, if the Dharma being shared there is alive and sharing universal truth, the potential is always there to grow. If all we want to do is look good, then and look impressive, then we're just Buddha wannabes. That's a pun intended. Seeking only self-recognition. Fake flowers and wannabes are shallow, transparent, and those with the courageous eyes to question and doubt, the courageous, if they're able to do this, they'll know, this is not what we want to be. No, that is not the answer. But in this day and age, when we want everything to be a quick fix and happen easily, in a way, we're looking for the secret to success. But there is no secret to success. It takes hard work to make something real and alive. It means we have to be committed, and most of all, I think we have to be caring. I shared with Reverend Carey early on in one of our conversations that it was just a few months ago that Patti and I were invited to the Jōdo Shinshū Center, which was rare, to speak to the IMOP candidates about how to prepare a Dharma talk, how to prepare a Dharma message in English. And we had, of course, handouts of what we consider important to try to prepare for. But we began sharing two quotes. And one is Maya Angelou. I love this quote of hers. She said, people will forget what we say. People will forget what we do. But people will never forget how we made them feel. And this is so important, as leaders and ministers. Do we want people to remember what we said and what we did? Maybe, but they won't. Eventually, in the final analysis, we all remember what we felt like. How did something or someone make me feel? And Reverend Ron Kobata, this is something he said to me years ago when we were talking about Dharma messages. He said, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Isn't that great? I love that too. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And when we care, we're feeling our interconnectedness. We're feeling our interdependence. We're applying that one of the two eyes. We are a part of each other. And so we care. And our caring is our nurturing of the Dharma. And naturally, things, I think, begin to happen. So does Buddhism have a future? In the world, of course, in America, in the world, Buddhism has a vibrant future. Absolutely. But for Jōdo Shinshū and our temples and missions have a future in America. That depends on each and every one of us. Now, are we real or are we artificial? We cannot get stuck in just, doing what we've always been doing if it hasn't worked. And if it hasn't worked, then we have to try something new. which is another Ogui Sensei slogan. Let's try something new, and don't be afraid of making mistakes. People will criticize, but it's all right. If he would say, if people are not criticizing, then you're not trying to do anything. Is that great or what? Huh. And so we should be. If it's not working, you should try to do something else. We should try new things. Be open to it. And yes, there will be criticism. Yes, people will not always feel comfortable with what you're trying to do. In fact, when I first came to Sacramento, um, I didn't just, well, we were not embraced immediately by everyone, especially some of the very caring members of the temple, the board members and leaders, the Fujinkai president. I still remember one day going to the temple, and I think I got there around 9:30 or 10, and we were in transition. The person who was our office staff had left, and we were looking to hire someone new. And so I came to the temple, and outside of the front of the temple door that was locked was our Fujinkai president, Mrs. Yuki Miao, and she looked at me with just this disdain, like, well, why aren't you here? And I said, well, we have no office staff, so I usually come in around this time. But, did you tell anyone that you're going to be coming in? And she said, no. I said, well, if you want to come again at any time, just give me a call and I'll make sure we're here. And then as I opened the door and took her around to the different places she needed to get to and get into, she was lecturing me on all the things I should be doing. You should be doing this and you're not doing this. And I listened to her, and then when she was finished, and I said to her, well, Mrs. Miao, I appreciate all of your concerns, but many of them I don't think I'll be responding to, because I don't think that's something I'm going to focus on. And then she looked at me almost like, just shocked that I would say that to her. And I said, but it's okay. If that's what you really feel this temple needs, then I think you probably need to find someone else, because I'm hoping to do something here, but that's not it. And oh, she was furious. She left that day, and I think I didn't mean to upset her, but because I didn't argue with her, I just said, well, that's probably not gonna, all that's not gonna happen. And then next thing I know, some of the supportive board members are saying, oh, you better watch out. Fujinkai president's out to, get you out of here. And I said, oh yeah, I can imagine that she might feel that way. And but we just carried on, continued to focus on the kids. And yeah, I was getting a lot of flack, and a lot of you should be doing other things. And we tried to do as much as we could. We didn't ignore the other things, but focusing on the kids. And it's very interesting that within 2 years or so, when her grandchildren were really enjoying coming, and we know who they are and they know who we are, and they're talking about how much they're enjoying coming to Dharma school or the temple, and suddenly her complaining stopped. She still was not too happy with me, but she was no longer trying to get rid of me. She was now giving me space to try to do something. And we had our own resolution, that in a very interesting way, because it was maybe about a few years after that she was so dedicated that she had to have heart surgery, but she put it off until after the temple bazaar. And after the temple bazaar, then without telling anyone, I didn't know she had this condition. She went in to have surgery, and although it was successful, there were complications later, and she passed. and I received a call from her daughter, and I was shocked to hear that we had lost her. And her daughter said, Mom said that if anything happens, she only wants you to do the service. And it was, I think to me, we resolved that we were now okay. But it was a little late to be able to talk to her again, but that would be impossible. But I always like, although we had our differences, we were now okay with each other. And this happened a number of times with different leaders of our temple. And I come to understand, my feeling is that many of our dedicated and caring leaders, to them, the temple is like their child. And, you know, me coming in as a new minister, they were looking at me thinking, well, like a son wanting to marry their daughter. Huh. Like they care that much about the temple. It's their child. And here I am coming in to care for their temple as their minister. And I began to understand that they want to know exactly what any parent would want to know about someone wanting to marry their daughter or son. They want to know this. Will you care for her? Will you always be there when she needs you? Can she rely on you? Can we rely on you? Will you love her? Will you care for her as much as we do? Will you love her as much as we do? And this is what Patti and I had to do. It took a few years, but to be able to show that we care about this temple and Sangha as much as you do. And in doing that, we become family. We become family. And there's no doubt that we knew early on coming here that we were making lifetime friends, and many who continue to be like family. So does Buddhism have a future in America and in the world? Absolutely. But does our Jōdo Shinshū tradition, as we have been sharing it, does it have a future? Do our temples and missions have a future? This depends on all of us. Depends on all of us to make our temples, we feel, genuine, real, alive Dharma flowers. So I'd like to open it up for any thoughts or questions, and trying to hopefully respond to the topic for the day.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Reverend Bob. Let's see if we have any questions here in house first. Okay, let me check the chat window real quick. Okay, everybody in the particularly Zoom audience, this will be your last chance to ask questions, so please put them into the chat. Actually, Reverend Bob, I was just going to mention, I thought it was funny that through the past couple of days, we've been addressing, the Dharma, and we talk about the temple as a buffet, a Dharma buffet, and that temple growth, comes from the temple being a living flower, so that the bees, the seekers, come for nourishment. Right? And if it's a plastic flower, it looks pretty, but there's no nourishment, so they don't come back. So anyway, I just thought it was funny that we keep referring to, we're using food and eating references. When we talk about the Honganji, one of our members, when she's asked, people find out you're a Buddhist, oh, you're a Buddhist, what's your practice? And she says, oh, well, I'm a Honganji Buddhist, so our practice is eating. And when you think about it, our technical consultant has discovered that it's like you cannot go home without bags of food. It's like, take home. And I think there is a connection in that a lot of Jōdo Shinshū, it is about that your religious understanding is simple as saying itadakimasu. this food that we're going to get. And that's it. It's in every day.
I think the one of the strengths of Jōdo Shinshū is that we are a family-oriented Dharma tradition. You know, where you know, when I visit like this Buddhist meditation group, we have many older seekers, individuals, but having whole families, generations of families coming together is really one of the unique features of, I think, Jōdo Shinshū, especially here. So that's something we have to, well, in order to maximize that uniqueness of being a family-oriented temple or kind of Buddhism, I feel that the focus again has to be always the children, to make sure that we have our Dharma school and our youth programs priority 1, 2, and 3. So and again, you know, knowing who they are, learning names, it's so important, so important. And everyone is bad with names. I'm terrible with names, but I have to make myself practice and learn and focus. That's all it takes. It just takes, you know, again, effort. The Four Noble, the Eightfold Path, and 6 Paramitas, we have to make the effort.
We have a couple questions coming in from the chat. So from Ken Okimoto, it says, little kids today may one day be living on the moon or Mars and want to start something like a temple. What should be the essence of what they create?
Oh, should be no different. Always be impermanence and interdependence. That clearly they can really see the interdependence of what if you're living on the moon. yeah. That life is dependent on so much. Life, they could really look down on the earth and see one earth. How amazing is that? You know, astronauts often comment on that experience of looking down and realizing there are no borders. There are no different countries. It's just the earth, the little green marble floating in space, and life exists there, and it's home. You know, it's amazing that so many have commented on that, and it's a spiritual experience.
Yeah, I think we have some follow-on questions to that. So we have a question from Diane Ida, and Diane says, for the Padma Metta class, what activities were there in addition to discussion? Second question, did you personally teach the classes?
Yes, I personally taught the class, and I felt it was really important to that was my opportunity to get to know these kids, and and to this day we have connections with these young children that we taught so many decades ago. But the curriculum, the activity we had other than lectures, well, there's one that I would give homework every week, but my homework, I called it fun work, because it's, you know, I just had them list a few things, like 5 things or 10 things, 10 examples of change that you noticed, examples of impermanence in the past week that you've noticed, in your examples of interdependence. Another week I would ask, or list things that you realize you're grateful for that you didn't know before. And they would be fun, listing examples of your life being tough, that there's dukkha in your life. And I'd have them write an essay, you know, what I've learned in this class, and what is Buddhism. Sometimes I have them write a story. I think near the end I was having them, if they wanted to create, write a story. One young man made a comic book, and Oh, it was it's so interesting working with them. So the kids are just so much fun, so fresh.
The
Uh,
Monku contract.
oh, the no monku Patty just reminded me. I I created a no monku contract because and I'll send it to you, Reverend Carey. But it's I've used it many times since then. But it's a contract that reads something like a Buddhist life is a life of gratitude. But when we complain, monku, whine, there is no room for even a sliver of gratitude in our hearts. So, uh, in order to see, to maybe get a glimpse of how hard it is to live a life of gratitude, um, we're going to try to live one full day, 24 hours without complaint. And so I created a no monku contract, and they sign it. I, so and I, Bob Washington, Thomas, will try. I will try not to monku, complain or whine for 24 hours on this day, and your parents get to pick the day. I told them. So your parents will pick the day, and then you have to go 24 hours without complaining, and then they sign it, right? And then if they whine or complain or one monku comes out, then they have to start again on another day. So it's so much fun watching them. And they would say, "Oh no, that's a monku." As soon as you even criticize, it's a monku. Like, "Oh, this doesn't taste good. That's monku. You got to start again." So I after I give them this, and parents are always so happy. Parents would even ask, "Can we make this 1 week instead of 1 day?"
Yeah.
And
My answer, Bob, would be yes, but it'll cost you. So
yeah. But it was fun to do, and I would give the kids advice. I'd say, I'm going to help you. I'm not going to give you this contract of no monku without giving you some good advice. So on the day that your parents choose for you to live without monku, without complaining, without whining, without criticizing, without getting upset, on that day, my advice is, right, go to sleep early, wake up late. Oh, but other than that, we also, oh, what is it?
I was just going to say, I think they teach that at the seminary. So
We also, for activities in the Metta Padma class, we would go into the Hondo at the end of each class, and we would learn Hondo etiquette, uh, to bow and why we bowing, entering the Hondo. And we talk about the altar, what it represents, incense burning, Oshoko, what does it represent? And then how to Oshoko. And I would have them try to do it mindfully, thoughtfully. And the mantra is Oshoko is not a race. The slower, the better. Oshoko is not a race. The slower, the better. So trying to slow down 9-year-olds is really hard, but you see them really struggle to do something slowly. And when they're told, you bow 3 times, you're going to gasho here, we're teaching them when to do it. Now they're all fumbling around, can't remember what to do, and reminding them that this is just a part of being mindful. But yeah, that we had a lot of activities, and we tried to make them all, as entertaining and as meaningful at the same time as we could. So yeah, I miss teaching that class. It was just really fun. I found that the secret with one of the secrets for me that worked. If I had 10 kids in the class or 20 kids in the class, doesn't matter how many kids I have in the class, I have to be able to keep at least half of them engaged. At least if I have 20 kids, I have to focus on maybe making sure that I'm keeping 10 of them engaged, and then the other 10 will come along. you have to reach it, make sure that you're not forgetting anybody, and going up and down the aisles, and yeah, it was just really a lot. It was a kick. It was a kick.
Well, we're going to be restarting the Metta program and the Sangha program here at Makwa Honganji. Would you like to be guest lecturer? We can
Yeah.
have you in. We usually meet in the evening, so it'd be kind of late for you, but we can work that out.
Okay. No, not if you fly me in. To teach Metta Padma? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the intensive course with Reverend Bob during the summer or something.
Well, I would start off the class because the BCA recommendation for the Metta Padma Award was 6 months of class. Right, 6 months at half an hour sessions. I guess because they felt like kids' attention span was short, but half an hour you get nothing done. You take roll and that you used up 1/3 of your time already getting settled in. So I felt that, and the curriculum I didn't care for, so I rewrote our curriculum and I presented it to the scouting committee. And I said, I'll put this curriculum up against any of the kids that you go through yours, because I think this is pretty solid. And they approved it, and I made it a 10-week curriculum of 1-hour sessions, sometimes a little longer. And so we're covering really like 2.5 months instead of 6 months. And in the very first class, I let the class decide. And I'd say, okay, the BCA Scouting Committee recommends that we have this class for 6 months, every week for 6 months. But I feel we could do this in 10 weeks. But in order for us to complete this in 10 weeks, every week is going to be really important, and you have to come. If you miss 1 week, maybe you could make it up. If you miss 2 days, if you miss 2 weeks, we'll see you next year. So, we made it pretty clear that no, you have to come every time. And if you miss, it's on you to talk, partner up with someone that knows what they're doing and learn from them. But if you miss 2 weeks, we'll see you next year. You don't have to come anymore. And but if we make them feel like you have to be there, it's our responsibility to make sure there's something worth coming to. And I think the kids at the end of the class, a lot of times they wish there was more. And a couple of times I've had kids take the class a second time. I said, you already got the award. They said, well, we just want to come again. And so that's, to me, perhaps the highest compliment when they want to continue on. And so anyway, I have them take a vote. Say, we're a democratic society. All right, who wants 6 months and who wants 10 weeks? All those who want to meet only 10 weeks, raise your hand. And their hands would all go up. And then, if anyone who wants 6 months, and of course they say, oh, no, 10 weeks. But 1 year I had one scout, I think we had a class of close to 20. And I said, who wants 10 weeks of class? 19 hands went up. And who wants 6 months? And I said, it has to be unanimous or we're going 6 months. And Scotty Matsumoto raised his hand. 6 months. And his friends are all saying, Scotty, no, put your hand down. They were getting so upset, but I was so proud of him because he stood his ground, says, no, 6 months. And I took a vote two times, 6 months each time. And so I asked him, Scotty, why do you want to have the class for 6 months rather than 10 weeks? And he said, because then we will learn more. Oh gosh, it was great. It was great.
Bob, I feel bad confessing that 2 years ago we did the Metta program online. The first time to do it all online. This is the peak of stay-at-home during the pandemic. And I confess I did it in 2 weeks, 10 hours.
That's okay.
Because I was so impressed at how fast the kids were. I forgot how it's like new memory bank, right? It's just like boom, everything goes
You
in.
know,
And the
yeah,
following week, they're going, 1 through 10, every particular detail they're supposed to memorize. Well, hold
yeah.
on, it's going to be really easy. Actually kind of leads into the next question. This is from Tamara Manley at Wailuku Honganji. And she says, how can we get temple leaders, Dharma school teachers, and YBA leaders more involved? How can we get them to be more engaged? So involvement and engagement of temple leaders, Dharma school teachers, and YBA leaders.
Hmm. Yeah. Patty, you have any thoughts on that? Patty's sitting right here.
Hmm. No, that's hard. That's a hard question.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, they have to want to be in that position to do things or to make changes.
Yeah. I think that's Patty and I both feel that that's really difficult. You can't make anyone do anything. And this is where I think at the when I was talking about, do our temples and missions have a future? Do our Jōdo Shinshū temples and missions have a future? That depends on all of us. Do we care? Do we care? Because that's what really is important. If the leaders and the YBA advisors, if they really care about what's best for the temple and for the kids, then you'll be there. I think I like to think that. And otherwise, why are we doing it? Are we doing it just because something to do, because we're trying to maintain what has always been done, when we're realizing that what's always been done is not working? I think, really, that's not that's not a question that we can answer. No, there's no answer to how can we get people to become more active. We can't motivate them. We can only motivate ourselves. Yeah. And I think that's another thing that Patti has always said. When you encounter enthusiasm, never diminish it. Always tap into it. So no matter what, if somebody's enthusiastic, tap into it. Don't diminish it. Don't just criticize it. Oh, what you're trying to do. Then that's not going to work. If they're enthusiastic, then try it out. Bring them in. So that's really work. This is I think one of Patty's mantras. Never ever diminish enthusiasm, and it's been good. So hopefully, maybe at those temples, if you have a difficulty engaging, having your leaders that are not involved and unengaged, find people who are enthusiastic and have them become engaged. And eventually, the leaders that maybe are not as involved, they'll realize that these young people, these new people with enthusiasm, they care about the temple too, just much as I do. And they'll begin to maybe relinquish some of that control.
Well, I think that the idea of caring and sharing is a theme that I've been addressing today. And this follows on with a question from Marilyn Morikawa, who's here in the audience, and she asks, what is the role of technology in sharing caring? Is it possible to use technology to share caring? So the kind of thing that we're doing now.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think Zoom is here to stay. I'm very grateful for it, and yet at the same time, I know there's nothing like live. We have to have both. when we cannot be there physically, having Zoom virtual meetings as an option is so wonderful. But as we all have experienced, there's nothing like live. Nothing like live.
I think my Thursday night is a good example. People from all over being able to Zoom in.
Your Thursday night class. On once a month on Thursday night, Patti has for our Betsuin group, it's what's called the Health and Wellness Series, and she'll bring in a speaker on different issues. We've had like cardiac health, hearing, vegetarian cooking. I mean, you name it, virtually everything. Dementia, grief, handling, recovering from grief and loss. So many. I mean, it's been going on for how many years now, and then we're having a music one in December. That we've done that for 3 years now, because music is good medicine. It's healing medicine. So on the Thursday night groups, we're having our meetings are the Sacramento Betsuin Health and Wellness Thursday night series. We have people coming in from Chicago and Hawaii and Los Angeles and Japan. That's phenomenal. I mean, that could never happen. So, yeah, technology is great, but also we have to always recognize there's nothing like live. There's nothing like getting a hug from a real person.
Yeah. Well, I think when we look at the three treasures, right? So Buddha, Dharma, the Dharma. These things, yes, you can use technology and it's a way to communicate.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea of Sangha, a community where you're learning to get along with people who are different than you are. So many different people coming together to form a community. That's the part that's hard. It's like impossible to do. It's very hard to do online.
Mm-hmm.
The question does come up many times. Shouldn't we have an online ministry? Shouldn't we have a virtual Sangha? We've experimented with it, but it's really hard to keep it going. There isn't that personal connection. Let's see. There's actually Louis has his hand up, so I think he would like to come on camera. So Anna, if we could let's see, switch over to Louis S. And then Louis, if you could turn on your mic and camera, you can ask your question.
I think that guy's gone.
It shows up on mine.
I don't have Louis.
Oh.
Ah, yes, there he is. There he is. Start video.
Okay. Now, can you?
Yes.
Can
you on camera maybe? And...
No. Let's see. Can you?
Okay.
Oh, unmute.
Oh, sorry, Louis, we need to unmute.
Can you? Yeah. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Reverend Oshita. You touch my heart. You touch my heart. It's beautiful what you had to say. I'm from a Longmont Buddhist temple in Longmont, Colorado, and found this particular Zoom because we were in Hilo a couple of weeks ago, and there was a friend of mine who goes to the temple there, and she said there's something interesting in Makawao you should tune in on. So I was over in Lahaina not long ago. I have a couple of relatives buried at Wyola Church. And then we drove up to Makawao to look for some other relatives or graves there in the uplands of Haleakala. And I think that there's a practice, a native Hawaiian practice that some of you may know of, which interests me greatly, called, it's not metta, it's like metta very much because I've practiced both. And Reverend Carey, you may know of it, it's called Ho'oponopono. And it's a deep practice, and it's very like metta. Now, I am being educated as a grief counselor at present. And Reverend Oshita, it goes back to what you said in the very first part of this, I think in the first 10 minutes. Someone asked me not long ago, is there a Buddhist approach to grief? And I said, no, there's a human approach to grief.
Exactly.
All of us, if we live long enough, will have grief or touch it, experience it, whatever. And grief is another way of making space for love. That's all it is. And the action of a Buddhist or of a Christian or of whomever is simply to witness to that person's loss and to sit with them, make space for them, and try to love them. Now, I can talk about that theologically or philosophically from many viewpoints, but the main thing I think is kind of what you were alluding to, is to reach out and love and touch that person. And what you have said today touched me deeply, because it's the kind of thing that I listen for. And when someone asks me to speak about it, what I try to say. This is a depth of human experience, and the Dharma is a comment on depth of human experience, and at the same time is central to it, just as the heartbeat is central to life. Always be there in some way or another.
Yeah, very good. I totally agree, Louis. I have been asked in the past, I've worked with, in Sacramento, they have hospital chaplains training, and I was asked to participate once to talk with these hospital counselors and chaplains, and their question was, how can we help Buddhists who are in grief or having to know loss? And my response is exactly what Louis shared, is that I said, treat them as you would any human being, because that's all we are. We are human beings having to know loss. There's no formula that Buddhists grieve like this and Christians grieve like this. It's not about that. It's about knowing loss. And when there have been at least half a dozen times I've been called to go to the hospital for by a hospital chaplain, because there's a family there asking for a Buddhist priest to come, and they call our temple because it's there and large. And I began to ask the question, I'm happy to come. I tell the family I'm honored to come and I'll be there, but let them know that this is I'm a Japanese Buddhist minister. It's a Japanese sect of Buddhism, and I'm happy to be there for them. And if that's okay, I'll just to let them know, because so many times I've gone there, and it's a Southeast Asian family, Cambodian or Thai, and they were not seeking. What they were seeking was cultural comfort. Okay? They were seeking cultural comfort, not Dharma comfort. And so most of the time, I'd say when I'd ask that question, the chaplain would call me back and say, family said, that's okay, you don't have to come. But one time they said, yeah, we do want you to come. And, that was fine. So I went. But the family themselves, most of the time, if they're not with the temple, if they have no affiliation, and if they're just deeply rooted there in the cultural dimension, their cultural dimension of the Dharma, that's what they're seeking. So I would say to the hospital chaplains, often they're seeking cultural comfort, but it's not, you treat them as you would any human being having to deal with loss that we all inevitably must know in life. So, yeah, thank you very much for that.
Yeah, thank you very much, Louis. That was a great question. We have a question, a follow-on question from Diane Ida. She's asking about the health and wellness sessions that you do. Do you interweave Buddhism in your health and wellness sessions?
Sometimes.
Yeah, I think Patty's here. She says sometimes. Most of the time, we actually try to get Dharma members, people that we know that are active, and they, naturally are, a part of that. Have been a part of our sangha for a long time. It's amazing the resources we have within our temples, and when you start realizing how many people we could call on for help and have so much to share, it's amazing.
So if anyone is interested, we just had Nishime just on Thursday. So if anyone's interested, I can send you the video for that. We had Alan Hirahara, who's a sushi chef and caterer, and usually works or helps out at the Jōdo Shinshū Center. But he did Nishime. It was a wonderful class. I have Gordon Atai coming in December. He's the Fresno Betsuin president, but he also sings and plays keyboard at Yoshino, which is a restaurant in Fresno. So I have him then. And in January, I have Zumba. I think in February, I have nutrition, a nutritionist who's going to talk about tofu. What's the benefits and some creative ways to make tofu at home and maybe different ways to prepare it too. So if any of you are interested in any of those kinds of Zoom classes, I'm more than happy to share the Zoom link and have you come and join us. It's usually a Thursday evening at 6:30. And we do have some that, well, I would say most of the people that I touch or invite are all Buddhists. So they do bring in a little bit of the Buddhist aspect, but it's really, really more focused on like the health and the wellness portion. So thank you for asking about that.
Yeah, I was just going to add that one of the most successful initiatives we had before the pandemic was a Shojin Ryori, so Buddhist vegan cuisine class that was taught by a vegan chef. And we had like 45 people showed up. And most of them were not members of Honganji. And then the following week, the county of Maui said, no, stay home. We had to shut everything down for a while. We have a question, a follow-on question from Tamara Manley at Wailuku Honganji. How often would you suggest Dharma School have classes? For example, every Sunday, every other Sunday, once a month? So how often should Dharma School meet?
Oh, well, what we did is we had it every week, every Sunday, and I feel it's really important to have consistency, especially with the kids, that you have a routine of what we're doing every service. And when we were there for all those years, for the Dharma School service, I kept the same routine. What we're going to chant, we always chanted Junidai, the three treasures, everything was pretty much set in order. And there was a reason for that. I wanted consistency. I wanted them to come knowing that something is going to be very familiar, where the young kids could even almost start to memorize Junidai, especially the Koga, Chorai, Mida song. but having consistency, and more often you do it, the more feeling of familiarity there is for them, and something that is consistent, that they know will always be there. And I'm mentioning this because I was moved by, I was fortunate to work with Mori Rimban. He was my second Rimban at the LA Betsuin after Masoka Rimban. And he once well, we were together with Yukawa Sensei, and Yukawa Sensei asked him, why did you become a minister? I mean, although your family is temple in Hiroshima, and Mori Sensei said, he never thought to become a minister, even though his family has a temple in Hiroshima. But he came back after the war. He was in the Japanese army, and he came back to a completely defeated Japan. He came back to a Hiroshima that no longer existed. It was devastated. And his family temple on the outskirts of Hiroshima survived the atomic bomb. But he was completely lost. He said, Japan, his world, everything he believed in and thought and knew was upside down. It was just completely, his world was upside down, and there was nothing there he could rely on. And he went home to his family temple, and his mom and dad, of course, welcomed him home. And first thing that he said they did is they went into the hondo, and they had omairi, they had a service. And he said he was suddenly felt like the ground was solid again. And for a moment, his whole world was upside down. Nothing remained of what he knew was his world. But suddenly, in that moment of being in the hondo, chanting together, he said, something was solid. And what he said that day made me want to pattern our temple after that feeling of being solid. And in our 32 years there, we've had, unfortunately, a number of times where young parents have died, and leaving the children feeling like their home that was once rock solid is now feels like quicksand. And one of the things I saw when they would come to the temple is that the temple was consistent. Whenever they came, they knew we're going to sit in the hondo, we're going to oshoko, we're going to chant Jumidai, we're going to, there's a routine there that helped them feel like, okay, there's something here, my touchstone of constancy, help me regain my focus and my balance. And so we did this with this in mind also, not just for the kids to feel like, okay, I know what's going to happen, but I wanted our temple to be a safety net that I hope the kids never have to use. But when they did have to, when they needed a safety net, it was there. All of us need a safety net, and when we need that safety net, the temple was there. So, I think Dharma school, having it as often as possible, is really important. And it gives all of us a chance to connect with them even more.
Well, thank you very much, Ron. That's when we start the Sangha Award program here, particularly, it's supposed to be 72 hours, which would normally be about 2 years if they come every Sunday. So it is a massive commitment on both sides, but also for the parents, right? The parents have to come because they're so they need to get exposed to the Buddhist teachings as well.
Well, that was part of my curriculum for Metta Padma too. Not only coming to the class, but they had to attend Dharma school. They had to come to Dharma school service for all of those 10 weeks, even if they were not familiar with it. They wanted to take the class because that's where they would practice their hondo etiquette, and they would see, that this is why I'm learning these things. So, making attendance a part of the curriculum.
And in modern times, it is very difficult because modern kids, of course, have a busier schedule than mine. I'm not sure how parents manage the schedule of their kids. It's not like everybody goes to church every Sunday anymore. I mean, there are organized sports leagues that operate on Sundays, so things have changed. But I'm hoping, like you say, that the kids who participate in the program will feel that will feel comfortable in reaching out to the temple, to the minister, to the sangha, if they encounter a crisis, a problem, or just need someone to talk to. They'll feel comfortable coming to the temple, to the minister, to the okay, so we're down to the last 4 minutes. If there's any other questions from the audience here, not questions. Hang on, let me grab the microphone. Okay.
Someone asked a very important question. How do Buddhists respond to someone who is experiencing grief?
That is experiencing what?
Grief.
Grief. Oh, yeah.
I would like to share with you my experience and how I respond to that. I'm 84 years old. So I was born in a small camp called Waikapu. During those days, my grandparents, even my mother, they didn't have much education. My mother just went to the 7th grade, and they're all Buddhists. This was World War II, 1944, 1943, 44. And whenever a boy died in war, Furukawa or Nagano or whatever, we had a big plywood wall. We put the name on. So-and-so Hirano, DOW, died of wound, or KIA, killed in action, Italy, or MIA, missing in action. And the funeral services were held in a camp. And the family did nothing. There was a chairperson who handles everything. They would call all the families. They would set up the tents and everything, cook and everything. And they handled everything in that way. And we used to call this section ku. In one section, Makawa would be one ku, and would be a chairperson. He is responsible to handle everything. The family did nothing. He would call the men, set up the things, the wives would cook food and everything. And this is the way they practice when someone passed away or suffering. And this continued on. Then when I graduated from college and came home, I became the chairman of my group. So if someone died, it was my responsibility to call the people that set up everything. And being the chairman, when I see the family, all I did was say nothing, but just tell the person close to me. And I left my phone number. If you need me, call. That's what I did say. But those days were all like that. Even up until the 80s or 90s. Today they call it community association, but that's the way it started. So cool, really. If you really want to express deep compassion, all you have to do is hug the person. You don't have to say anything. Leave the telephone number. If you need me, call. That is really practicing compassion the way the old people did. Most of them, I didn't go to church until, I didn't go into a temple until I was 6th grade. The reason why, we live in a plantation camp, and we saw the minister only when there was a funeral. But the compassion was, everybody was poor, so everybody had to help each other. So in Buddhist, the interdependence was necessary. It became automatic. Although a few of them went to church, most of them didn't go, but just by listening to them, how important it is to help each other, how important to help each other. That was The Buddhist message was transmitted just by practicing. Although we didn't understand that it was Buddhism, we just thought that's the way we were brought up, but that really was Buddhism. And that chairman's responsibility was to handle everything and control the person who is experiencing grief. And just by observing them spontaneously, I did that. All this guy was hug his friend, he said, call me. So that's all I have to say. So compassion, really, you don't have to say anything. All you do, you hold the person, the message, action speaks louder than words. And just leave your phone number. And I think that would be a very, very good way. You don't have to say anything. Just the warmth of your body, give a message 1,000 times more clearly.
Thank you for sharing it. Also, while I've got the mic, I just want to say, Bob, you probably recognize these two people. They just wanted to come and say hi. So, Bob, thank you again for joining us.
Thank you.
I'd like to give you the opportunity. Turn this off. I'd like to give you the opportunity to make any, for you and Patti to make any concluding remarks that you'd like to make.
Patti, is there anything you'd like to conclude with?
It's been a pleasure.
Tony and Monica.
Oh, Tony and Monica. It's been a pleasure to be a part of this seminar. Thank you so much, Reverend Carey, for inviting us and all the Hawaii Honganji members. Thank you. You guys are all doing great things out there. So let's all work together, work hard together, and stay safe.
And I'd like to close with another reflection that we used at the State Assembly. Please join me in a moment of reflection. A young man I've known for most of his life recently asked me, how can I be happy? It's a question we probably have all quietly asked ourselves from time to time, for everyone seeks happiness. We would all like to feel content and that our lives are complete. If there's a secret to happiness, it is when we discover that our real happiness emerges naturally when we become uncentered on ourselves. Think about the times we went to a truly great movie, play, or concert. We left the event smiling, happily saying things like, that was great. I enjoyed that so much. Telling friends, I'd like to see that again. Why was it such a great time? Why were we feeling so happy? The reason is simple. For the duration of the entire movie, play, or concert, we were totally unconcerned with how we felt. We were not thinking, how do I feel? Am I happy? We were not judging, this is good, that's bad. This is right, that's wrong. Instead, we let go of our critical minds and become one with the experience. We become uncentered on ourselves, and the feeling of happiness naturally emerged. Every true spiritual tradition recognizes this reality and has tried to share this awareness in so very many ways. The Persian spiritual poet Rumi beautifully shared, beyond right and wrong, there is a field. I will meet you there. Beyond right and wrong, there's a field. I will meet you there. He was saying, beyond our judgments of good and bad, mine and yours, self and others, there is a place where we are no longer centered on ourselves. It is a place where we sense our oneness with all humanity. I will meet you there. Namo Amida Butsu. With kindness and gratitude beyond words.
Thank you, Reverend Bob and Reverend Patti. On behalf of the Honpa Honganji Mission of Hawaii, the Office of Buddhist Education, the Commission on Buddhist Education, and the Maui Honganji District Council, we offer our thank yous.
Oh, thank you.
Very, very happy that you were able to join us. And we wish you all the best. And there's going to be future follow-up sessions, I think we're going to, since we've proven that Zoom actually works, we can figure out how to do it. I think we could have some interesting discussions with some of our ministers as well. So I think this is just the beginning. One question that did come up, would it be okay if I share your email address with people who ask for it?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Sure.
I will do that. So if you're in the online audience and you'd like to have Reverend Bob's email, just let us know. Just put in the chat, and I'll make a list and then send it out. Because publicly publishing people's emails is kind of not nice. But if you would like to get in touch, so Ken, I will send you Reverend Bob's email address. But again, I wish you both the very best. And we're very
Thank you, Reverend Carey. Yeah,
it's
so good to meet you.
And I'd also like to applaud our in-house audience for your patience with our technology, and also the Zoom audience, because we had a few flubs here and there. But everybody, thank you very much for joining us. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and stay well. Stay well. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.